Let's get started demo first. So this is one of the application, web application where we have implement identity, code authentication and authorization, and also it is giving the flexibility all that endpoints like register endpoints which we user can register their information like via the email and password, and also there is a login mechanism. They can use a login, and once you log in, they can get the token, and there is an option also cookies authentication and all. They can use that cookies based authentication, and also they can provide that refresh token, and once you get the refresh token they will get the new access token and all, and also confirmation email, resend email, forget password, reset password. So those are things actually they can provide by using identity in .NET Core APIs. And on one more thing actually we'll implement how we can add this authorization attribute or authentication using that swagger. So those things actually we will implement in this session. So let's start the implementation. So before implementation, I especially recommend if you visit my channel first time, .NET Real World Example, so you can go to my channel and visit, check out that other session which we already covered for .NET related things, and many things actually we covered for .NET as well. So .NET API, so you can check out and feel free to decide like okay which one you have to want to learn, right? So that's all. Now get a start. So first what I need to do, I'll just create a new application, right? Go to that Visual Studio and create a new project. Choose ASP.NET Core Web API and create next, and choose any name. For example, I'll choose authentication, right? And choose next. Choose whatever the latest one. I just use the .NET 8 using that default settings on all. Create. Once you create, you are able to see the default web API template over here, which we can provide. They can provide weather forecast controller, and one more things over here, right? This is the get for the weather forecast, right? If you run this application, so it is simple. One endpoint they provide, right? Once you execute, you will get the data, right? So what I need to do, let me close this, and let me remove also this guy. Let me remove this and also remove this guy, which is dependent that controller. Okay. So now I will do that from the scratch so that you can understand, right, how we can achieve that. So in this case, first what I need to do simply, I have to actually import one package. So go to that manage package manager, right? Go to the browser, and here I have to add one package that is called search for Microsoft.NET ASP.NET Code Identity Core Package. Okay, this is that one, right? I'll just show you in a zoom in mode. So this is one package which we required for implement identity, and once I installed, now it's installed, right? So once installed, what I need to do next, I just add one DB context over there. So let me create a DB context. Let me create a one folder over here. For example, data, and here I have to add the DB context. So what would be the name? Name would be whatever name you want. So you can just add it over here. In my case, I just add this guy, identity DB context, add, and once I add identity DB context, right? So let me add this guy, and this is one. And once you add, and just you can get this one generic method over here, right? So we have to pass identity user, right? So here's the way actually. If you want to default uh, class, so you can pass it, but yeah, it is a generic base, so you can use your own class as well, which we can modify ever further. So don't worry about that. As of now we'll use the default one, but later on, once we are using the custom authentication and authorization, definitely we have to record to change that. So that time we'll change it over here. And now simply again, as of now, whatever we do and previously for the DB context things, that we have to do that. Simply I have to create that rest of the things like DB context option, pass it your DB context name, and create a variable, and here just create a base and pass it to the as a options, right? This is done. Now this is sufficient for this configuration. Like once we have done for in our db context using that identity server, so it will create the default tables and all, right? Whatever the default tables, right? Don't worry about that. I'll show you like what are the tables actually they will create it. And if you want to additionally add your things also, you can just create your entity and you can pass it over here, so that whatever additional tables, if you want additional entities, so that also will be added. So don't worry, I'll show you that one also. Let me create another tables. For example, create a entity folder over here, entities, and here inside this entity what I will do, simply I'll just create a blog, which is my favorite entity, blog entity. And let me add few properties over there, for example this and this and this. As of now just leave it that, right? And go back to your db context. Here simply what I need to do, simply public, or just create a property, for example like that, and create a db set and pass it to your blog entity over here, and create a logs like that. So it is just for that understanding perspective. Like see, if we create a identity db context, so it is not only just defined only our identities tables will be created. We have to record for additional entities, so that also we can just uh, we can create actually, right? So that's why I just show you. So like this way we can create identities tables as well as whatever way our tables, right? So let me create that. Once it's done, what I need to do next I have to go to configured in our program.cs file, those things. So let me go to there, and here what I need to, here like after this builder, what I can do, simply I have to add builder dot services dot add db context, and here you have to pass whatever your db context. So what is my db context name? My db context name is this identity db context, and inside this db context what I can do, simply options, pass it that options using the lambda expression, and here that options dot, you are able to see your provider, right? So what is my provider? My provider is SQL Server or others, whatever things. So as of now we don't have that that provider over here, provider extension. So what I need to do, I have to add those things as well. So first let me just configure that, and then we'll use that. So where I can configure here, so you can use your provider. Like I want to use SQL Server, so I can use the SQL Server, and here I have to pass our connection string. So configuration dot get connection string, and here you can just pass it to your connection string name. So as of now I don't have created, but yeah, I will create it little bit later. So what would be the connection string name? Identity connection string, right? So I think that is fine. And we have to import, first let me import this namespace, right? This is coming from here, but yeah, this guy is coming from that package. So let me add this package first. Go to that again, package, you get package. Here I require that entity framework SQL Server, use this guy, apply, accept. Now once it's done, go back to here. Definitely you have to bring that namespace C using entity framework. So once it's done, so now this configuration has been done, whatever your db context, so that we have to just register over there. So this is our first step. So what is that next step? So next step would be whatever our identity server, right? So that we have to configure, right? How we can configure that? After that what I need to do, again just builder dot services dot, here I have to add some additionally configuration. So add identity. So see this one, add entity API endpoints, right? So this add entity API endpoints actually add our identity user. So whatever our identity user, we can specify over here. So identity user, this is my identity user, right? And let me add this. And then after that, actually there's a, if you I want to add some roles mechanism so that we can use, but yeah, in this case, in this session, we have to not using any authorization, we have to managing authentication. So in upcoming session, right, so that we can manage that add roles as well. So yeah, we can leave it as of now, right? And once it's done, what I need to add, I have to add entity framework store, actually which is our DB context we are using for entity framework store, right? So that we have to mention over here. So what is my entity framework DB context? This is my DB context, right? And simply close that, right? So this is another step which we have to configure for this all the endpoints, which I'll show you in the demo, right? So that is done. Once is done, so that is sufficient, I guess, for over here, right? So what I need to do further, one last thing actually we have to configure for this identity, which is coming inside this app, right? So after this app, we have to add one middleware, right? So app dot map identity API, so which is actually refer by which identity user actually we have to use. So this is that one, right? So this identity user API we have to set in our configuration, in middleware configuration. So that is done, right? So these are things has been done. Now what I need to do, once you complete your configuration, you have to add your connection string, right? So go to that application dot settings here, you have to add your connection string. So let me add this connection string. What is that, our connection string name? So this is my connection string name. Just make it over here and then pass it to your connection string. So my connection string would be this, but it is dependent on your machine. So I actually configure now a SQL server instance. So that SQL server window authentication, we have to make it over here, like data source is a local server, and then catalogs we can add, for example, identity API, right? DB, and integration security and all, whatever the default things, we can keep it, right? Save it. Once it's done, you have to do migration, right? So there's a many way actually we can do that for migration. So there is a one way, you can directly go to that connected service and you add migration and update migration. This is a new features in Visual Studio. And after that, the another way actually, you can go to the package manager, you can just add those, add migration and update migration. And one of the best approach actually you can use that, which I already covered in my YouTube channel, right? And a few days back, actually, we have covered one session like auto EF core migration. So you can go to my channel, you can check out that one also. So that I will not going to over here. What I will do, simply I go to that package console. Here I can just add migration. So if it is not allowed to over here add migration, so what you need to do, simply you have to import one package actually for that. So yeah, here we don't have that package, add migration and update migration. So you can simply add that one, go to that manage package console, and here you can add the design. So you have to record that design, apply, accept. Once I add, also you can use another one. Is another one is tool, entity framework core tool, install that. This package actually we required to update and migration for that project level, right? So go back to again here and let me check, like, see, add migration is available, and this is API identity, right? API identity. And once I add, so it will generate your identity, it will generate actually your snapshot of that all the tables and all, right? So yeah, see, migration has been done. So if you go to that migration here, if you open this guy, so all that tables actually schema has been created, right? So don't worry about that. We'll show you in our SQL Server instance what are the table actually they have to create it, right? So that is done. Then go back to again package console. Here what I need to do, update database. So use that command also. Once I add this command, so they will create an update in our schema to our DB, right? So you see all this is done. So go to your DB and let me open your SQL Server and refresh this here and check it. What is that our DB name which we added over here? So yeah, this guy, right? Identity API DB. And if you open this and go to the tables, so all that tables has been created. See, they all the tables has been created like sp.net roles, claim .net role, and claims users, and sp.net user, and sp.net user tokens and all, right? So what I need to do, simply let me change this DB name, and let me show you. As of now we don't have any uh data or user, right? So let me fetch this data. Once you fetch, now see, as of now we don't have any data, right? So go back to your application, right? And let me run this application and see in action. So once you run, see, if you run, automatically all that endpoint has been created, and it will be visible for you in your API, right? So see, this is a flexibility actually. If you use identity server, so you don't need to create all the endpoints to actually uh, to authenticate an authorization, right? So that is actually flexibility. That's why I create this session. So now what I will do, see, as of now one more thing actually missing, that authorization header, right? So that also will add. But yeah, as of now I'll show you first. First I will create a one, I will just register one user. So let me register first. So what I can do, try out, pass it your email, for example kkp@gmail.com, and password would be, for example, kkp@123, right? And once you execute, see, it is successful registered, right? If you go back and run this here, now see, your user has been created over here, right? So now if your user has been created, so now we are able to get the token for authentication, right? So how we can get the token, let me copy this, right? This to email and all, and go back to login. So here there is a mechanism actually use cookies and all, right? So I will not use as of now, but yeah, let me pass username and password. Based on this actually they will generate the token, right? Let me execute that. Once you execute, now see, it is giving that token, wearer token. So this token actually allow to authenticate our endpoint, right? Without that it will not allow to authenticate. So that also I'll show you. Go to, let me stop one, right? First let me stop and go to solution. Let me create a one endpoint, create a controller, create a API controller, add this controller, and make it that controller as a user controller, right? Let me create a user controller, and simply what I will do, I'll just create a HTTP GET endpoint over here, and simple endpoint we have to create, which will just return and return okay, right? So simple, this is a simple endpoint. And here just protect my endpoint as a authorize attribute, right? So let me add that authorize. See, if I add this authorize attribute, so nobody can directly access this uh, controller, right? So let me run and I'll show you in action. So it is running, right? And once you're running, see, this is our endpoint. If I try to get this endpoint, I will get this 4 01, right? Because that is authorized. So how we can authenticate that endpoint? We have to create we have to get this token and we have to pass that token. So we can use as a swagger, as well as we can use here as well. If you go to here, see there's a endpoint, right? So we can just create we can just use this http request, right? This is a one file actually which introduces the .NET 8. So we can use that. How we can use that? Simply, if you go to view and go to other window, use that endpoint explorer, and in this endpoint explorer, whatever endpoint you are able to see, let me generate a request. So see, this is generate a request of get request, right? So simply, if I send the request, see, once you send the request, it is 401, right? So how we can authenticate? Simply, what I need to do, I have to pass authorization, right? And here I have to pass that token VRR, and then pass your token. So what is my token? Go back to here and just generate your token. So what was my password previously? My password was kkp at the rate 123, right? And this was my email. No, my email was the gmail.com, and password would be kkp at the rate 123, and just execute. Once execute, you are getting this token, right? Just copy this token, go back to your application and pass it over here, right? Simply you pass this here and check it, your bearer is correctly over there, right? So let me add that bearer and let me send this request again. Yeah, one thing actually I missed that semicolon. So let me, not semicolon, it's colon. So let me add that after that this, and then you can just send the request. Once you send the request, click that, you are able to get that information. Now see, we get that 20, okay, but this time we have not sent any result, right? So let me add something, my user list, right? So let me save it, go back to here, let me send back again to request. Now see, you are getting that data, right? Like this way, without that token you are not able to get that. So that is a very easy, and that we can do from my swagger as well. So one more thing actually we have to add in our swagger, that way I'll show you. We can use that http request client, right, which is provide that over here, right? So yeah, also you can use that your and postman, by postman also you can send it request, use that the token, you will get the data, right? Now what I need to do, yeah, that part actually I need to cover. Go to the program.cs file. Here I will just add that swagger header, right, so that I can test it by the swagger as well. So what I need to do, simply I have to add some configuration over here. Yeah, inside this swagger generation, right, what I need to do, I have to create some configuration. So let me copy that. Uh, I'm not going to actually create, because this is a simple configuration things. What I need to do, simply service builder.service add swagger generation. Inside that I just create a lambda expression, and inside that what I have to use, that add security authentication, use that OR2, use that open one, and this package actually we have to required. So what is that package? Let me bring back that package. So as of now, yeah, this one, that filter one, let me add that guy, install this guy, install the latest one, and edit code. Let me stop that, and that is done, right? Let me run this. Yeah, now once you run, now see, you are able to see this thing. So now what you need to do, you simply, if you want to send the request in that particular endpoint, whatever endpoint over here, right? So you can simply add over here, and you can add your token this, right? So let me create the token and just see how is that working. That let me generate again the token. Let me try use that kkp at the rate gmail.com, and here what I need to do, let me pass my super secret password, execute. Now once you execute, wearer token, right? Let me copy that token, go up, go to here, let me add wearer, and then add the token, right? Authorize, close, and now definitely we are able to get this data. Now see, data is there. If I log out, right? If I log out from here, let me log out and close. If I send request one more time, now see, you are able to 041, right? So like this way you introduce your identity authentication authorization mechanism in your web API, right? And also you can get that refresh token and all in later on we can do. And now we covered that authentication, right? But authorization is missing, right? That we actually, they are not provide that, add role and information and all, right? So endpoint, so which we can do in our upcoming session, how we can create our endpoint which can add a user role, so that once you add the user role we can create a authentic authorization token based on the role, and we can show you like, okay, how we can authentic authorization, so based on the role, right? Like suppose some user has a admin role, some user has a HR role, right? So like that. So that's all for this session. Thank you, have a nice day, and don't forget to like, subscribe and share.